Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about building with AI as a GDSC to help with homelessness in the San Francisco Bay Area. Let's get started. So let's learn a little bit about GDSC Stanford. Who here knows what a GDSC is? Okay, pretty awesome. They're just Google Developer Student Clubs. They're found at universities around the world. And this was our first year as a chapter. So let's learn a little bit more. We began in fall of 2023. This building is quite symbolic, actually. It is the Gates building where Google was the first iterations of when Larry and Sergey were working on it. It was actually at this building itself. So it's a pretty symbolic place. So it began in fall 2023. We did a lot of upskilling in fall quarter, right? We were learning a lot through the dev fests and a lot of upskilling right here, doing a lot of ideation, really, really fun stuff. And essentially, we had like a few guest speakers, right? We had this person from Trust and Safety at Google, and we learned a lot of new things through these workshops and a lot of cool processes like that. And we also went to a couple dev fests. Who here knows what a dev fest is? Okay, so they occur like throughout the fall, and they were awesome. This was actually in San Jose. It was our first year. We went to this. I spoke at this too. It was really, really fun. And we learned a lot about AI and a lot about Google Cloud and everything related in that aspect. So basically, then came Winter Quarters Solution Challenge. Who here knows what the Solution Challenge is? Can anybody tell me what it is? Go for it. Couldn't have said it any better. Yes, so that's perfect. So that was essentially what the Solution Challenge was. And we really wanted to pick a problem that affected our community. And one of the biggest problems that face the San Francisco Bay Area is the issue of homelessness. This is something that has been on the news for a while now, and it is a big issue that we had all wanted to tackle together. Even though I'm not from here, I realized that this was an issue that we all together as a club found that was very, very important to us, and we wanted to solve it. And one of the most important parts of it, which I'll get to a little bit later, at Stanford, there's this culture of building this scalable venture capital scalable operation right here that can raise a lot of money, make a lot of revenue, all of that stuff. And we kind of tend to leave these social impact-driven projects a little bit in the dust and on the side. And that's essentially that we really felt passionate about was kind of solving this issue. So yeah, so 38,000 people. That's the number of people in the San Francisco Bay Area that are homeless on any given night. And it was very, very unfortunate. So the first iteration of what we did in the winter was a full stack application that connects homeless people to their optimal shelter. And essentially how this worked was we managed 3 teams here in our club project. I managed the front end, the back end, and the AI team. And in like harmony, we essentially created this application within 5 to 6 weeks in which we coded this all up. And it was an application where essentially you can use this map, and then from there, you can take the questionnaire, and then from there, it'll give you your output. And that's essentially how it works. And it essentially matched you using like a logistic regression algorithm to your optimal shelter. And then from there, we were able to match you. And that was essentially what we did. But turns out, the county already had something like this. But this is essentially how it works. It had the questionnaire, and then we have this is your recommended shelter. So it was a very simple interface, and this was version 1. And we learned a lot through the process. We upskilled a lot in React, Firebase, TensorFlow, all these Google technologies as well. And we learned so much throughout the process. And it was really, really cool experience. But we then realized after this, like these are some pictures of us working on this together. This was our mentor, Jerry Kane. He's a very famous professor. Yep, yeah. Jerry Kane, one of the most famous professors at Stanford. Really grateful to have him as our mentor. He has been so valuable for us. And he was essentially giving us a lot of feedback on our idea. And here we are just working together and developing some cool products. There is seriously no better feeling than working in a room of people or on a Zoom meeting on one product and building together. There is no better feeling than that. And I think this was the turning point for our club, where we realized that, like, hey, we are a lot better when we build together. And yeah, who here has built something in a group of people? Like, it doesn't even have to be coding related, right? And there's no better feeling than doing that. And we realized that as a community, we're so much stronger when we build together. We have a lot of fun doing this. Sometimes we had sessions at like 1 a.m. Like, time flies when you're having fun, am I right? So we kind of did a lot of this stuff, and it was really, really fun. But then we realized one thing after winter quarter. And we were talking to a bunch of community partners, and we realized the following. Our solution solved an incorrect part of the problem. So it turns out, this is the diagram of how homelessness works in Santa Clara County and in the Bay Area in general. So essentially what happens is, this is what we were focusing on. We were focusing on the crisis response. And essentially here, this is the Here For You call center. And what we were trying to do was, hey, we want to match you into your optimal shelter right here. And that's essentially what we were trying to do. But you see the rest of this diagram. There is a lot that goes on right here, right? And we weren't solving that. And the Here For You call center was actually the best part of this entire pipeline, because it had a matching rate of 95% to every shelter that goes on, and it matched people into shelters. The real problem was as follows. Here. So once you go through filling out this form called the VSPDOT, and then you get into this database managed by Santa Clara County, then from there you get into this community queue. And here's a big, big problem that we kind of found out. Basically, there are 3 tiers of this queue, and you are ranked into low priority, medium priority, and high priority. Can anybody guess how much % of people are actually put into housing from this process? So only 20%. 20% of people actually get placed into housing. And that too, we don't even know if this is long-term housing. So the number could be a lot lower. The rest, we don't really know what happens. We know that they have to go back into the cycle of going back into a shelter and repeating the entire process over and over and over again. And after talking to hundreds of people that were in the system, this is something that I really emphasize, that if we are building a project for people who find themselves without a house, without a shelter, we need to understand their situation first. And that's what we did as a club. We went out, we worked with our public service center, and we went out ourselves and went to shelters to talk to some of the people in there, to hear their stories. And that was so, so important. In tech, we sometimes find ourselves very distant from the problems that we are trying to solve right here, right? We try to build these really cool softwares. We try to build these really cool APIs without really understanding the problem at hand. And that's something that we kind of wanted to solve together with this actual solution. And that's essentially what we were going for, was we wanted to understand exactly what was happening. We saw that there is like around 80% of people don't get housing, right? And we wanted to understand what happens to them afterwards. And we realized that there is no certainty for them. And this was a pain point that resonated a lot with us. So then we asked some of our community partners in Santa Clara County and some of the nonprofits that we talked to, and we asked them, how can we help? And it's a very simple question right here. And turns out there was a lot of ways that we could help out in. And specifically, we wanted to help out with technology because we are a Google Developer Student Club, but we wanted to use it in a very impact-driven way. And that's essentially what we wanted to go for. So what we found, the biggest part of the system that we could actually help with, was matching some of these people with the resources needed to up their score and get permanent housing afterwards. So essentially what we did was the following. We pivoted as a result, right? And we asked this question. What if we created a full stack application that connected homeless people with resources using AI? And that's essentially what we wanted to do, connect them with resources in the categories ranging from housing, education, transportation, medical relief. We wanted to give them all of the best resources that were available in a very, very presentable way. Because one problem that a lot of people found was that the resources were there. It was just that people couldn't access them, and they didn't get it in a very, very accessible form. And what we realized was we needed a system that was intuitive, that people could actually use to get the resources they wanted. And as a result, we built the following. We built something called ShelterLink. It is essentially this interface where you can chat with this chatbot for personalized help and explore the resources tab. We also have a feature where, like, essentially you can open the voice chat and you can actually talk with our agent right here. And you can ask questions like, where to find affordable and fresh groceries near me? Can you provide information about affordable housing near San Jose? Where to get effective and affordable medical services? And how can I access transportation services as a senior in Santa Clara County? This is just our initial design. We're definitely still in the development stages, but this is essentially how it works. And in the back end, this is how it works a little bit on this part, is we use something called RAG. Who here has heard of RAG in LLMs? Yes. So we use a lot of retrieval augmentation generation right here to actually get the information from these specific knowledge bases. And essentially from there, we are able to train this model even more on this specific information. And in our case, this is the homeless shelter resources right here. And we train it into this model. And then from there, it's able to output the responses that we want. So for example, if somebody asks, like, where can I find the closest, nearest food near me, right? It already knows in this system that, okay, this person doesn't have the resources to go to like a very fancy restaurant, right? Normal models would probably output a lot of stuff, right? This is already written into it. It has a specific knowledge base of resources that are vetted by the county. And then we go from there in that aspect. And it's vetted by the county, it's made by the county, and all we do is we add this generative AI piece to make it more accessible for people. And that's essentially what we're going for, is accessibility. Because what we learned from our interviews was that people can't access these things as easily as you would think. Even creating a Google account, sometimes that's very hard too, right? Creating a Google account, setting up, looking at this list, what resource do I need? There's a lot of time there. And if the technology is not perfect, your retention rate is horrible on this application right here, right? The people that you want to serve as a result do not get served if your technology is not there. And that's what we did throughout our iterations, is we checked, is this accessible? Is this usable? Is this something that our target audience can actually use? And we kept on prototyping and prototyping and prototyping as a club. And that's essentially how it went. So, an update, we're actually currently in talks with Santa Clara County to actually implement the solution. And never would I have thought that at Google Developer Student Club, like in the beginning, that I would be doing anything related to this. But it was through the opportunities that I got through stuff like the Solution Challenge and all these workshops that we learned together how to develop something that can actually help people. And there is no better feeling than that, right? And so why does this all matter? Let's get into this. So, as you guys probably know, this is Stanford. And here's a glaring statistic that has come out in the last year. 16% of undergrads that are CS majors at Stanford. 16% is a huge number. This number has gone up from like 3-4%. It has gone up to this, 16%. And a lot of our CS major friends, I'm a CS major for reference, by the way. But a lot of my CS major friends, they want to become successful, right? Everybody on campus has these goals of becoming successful. But what does that actually mean? And that is a question that I kind of wanted to delve into, right? Because for many of my friends, sometimes it means taking a job at a quant firm and earning nice, like $500,000 and cool compensation right there. And you're working a lot and you get paid a lot, but then you ask yourself, what are you actually doing for the world? How can you increase your impact on the world and on society as a whole, right? And we have these pre-existing notions of being successful. GDSC Stanford kind of wants to change that. We aim to redefine that with our impact-driven work as a club. And this is the culture that we've kind of instilled in this club, and that's what we want to keep on doing in the years ahead. So, and it's working. Ever since we announced this project, our club participation rate has tripled. we've had 3 times the number of people in our club. And that's pretty cool. So to everyone in the audience, I want to finish off with one last remark. The next time you learn some nice, exciting skills, the next time you go to AI Studio, next time you learn some developer docs or about an API or anything like that, make sure to ask yourself this one question. How can you use your technological skills to help make the world a better place? Thank you.